And the second question, of the 5 guiding principles of the Arizona State Treasurer, would you list 3 of the most important in your mind and why? And I'm going to ask each of these candidates, they will start with their 5-minute speech, of their candidate speech. While the one is speaking, the other one can get their questions answered, and vice versa for the second person. So that when they get done speaking, we will go right into the answers of their questions. And with that, I'll reiterate again, a 1-minute warning when you're doing your speech, and when the 5 minutes are up, you'll get the red card. And let's get started, and we will ask Katherine Haley to come to the podium, or you can use the microphone at the table if you want, and come and get your campaign speech started.
Oh, I have to bring it closer. Okay, thank you. First of all, Vicki, thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I really am grateful that I could join you here for your club meeting. A little bit about me. I'm an Arizona native. I was born and raised here. I'm a small business owner. I serve as president of the State Board of Education. I have worked in philanthropy, and I've advised members of Congress to advance conservative policies. To start off, I want to share a few things of why I'm running and sort of the 4 principles of what I hope to accomplish while I'm as treasurer. First is, I believe in wise stewardship. I believe that the role of the treasurer is the chief's custodian, and as treasurer of our state resources, we need to demonstrate wise stewardship, make responsible investments, but demonstrate real wisdom. The second is limited and efficient government. The role of the treasurer is narrowly defined in our state constitution, specifically in Title V, and is described in our revised statutes. The role is really to make strategic investments so we have strong returns, but do it in a way that is responsible as that chief custodian. As sort of in the belief of limited and efficient government, I believe that that role is narrowly defined, and so not expanding outside the role, but really believing in efficiency, accountability, and transparency. The third area of why I'm running is lower taxes. If I'm able to be a wise steward, if I'm able to advance a limited and efficient government, then we can keep our taxes low. We're not putting your state dollars at risk. And then the fourth is I believe in personal freedom. And so if I'm able to ensure that our dollars are wisely stewarded, we're able to invest them effectively within our community as according to statute in those disciplined ways, then I'm going to be able to allow you to keep your hard-earned dollars in your pocket so that you can advance personal freedom. So as I said earlier, a little bit about me. I worked on Capitol Hill to advance conservative policies, primarily in the educational workforce, anti-poverty programs, and the like. It was a real honor to help members of Congress think differently about the way our policies are advanced, and during my time working for the Speaker of the U.S. House, combat the Obama agenda. After that, I had the opportunity of working in philanthropy, helping to advise donors around the country to make strategic investments to promote liberty, opportunity, and personal responsibility. In that capacity, we were trying to identify incredible organizations that would promote human flourishing. When I returned home to Arizona 5 years ago, I started a company that is dedicated to promoting that works at the intersection of philanthropy, nonprofits, and public policy to help solve those strategic problems that we see in our communities. So we help with wise stewardship, we help these organizations ensure that they are fiscally sound and are ready to receive philanthropic support and be sustained. In my capacity at the State Board of Education, We have fiscal oversight of our schools. So when school districts are not meeting based on the Auditor General's office and the like, we will put them in receivership and we will put them on a plan to get back to stability. You might have read a little bit about the Tolleson School District. We put them in receivership last year. They're missing about $20 million. The reason why I'm running for treasurer is I believe in wise stewardship. And when I was thinking about the role and I was recruited and endorsed by Kimberly Yee, I was really excited about the role because not only are you the strategic custodian of the state resources, but you're also overseeing things like the Empowerment Scholarship accounts. You're also overseeing the 529 accounts. Through this permanent state land trust, you're making those strategic investments that are helping to fund basic state aid, which is a strategic part of our education funding. If really anything, that is a huge part of the land trust. So I look forward to answering your questions. Again, wise stewardship, limited efficient government, lower taxes, and personal freedom. It's a joy to be here. You can sign my petition, and I look forward to your questions. Thanks so much.
And let's welcome Elijah Norton.
Okay, sorry about that. Hello everyone, my name is Elijah Norton. First of all, thank you so much for having me. Just a little bit about myself. I started a business when I was 21 years old with a dream and $1,000. And today, I'm 35. My company generates over $400 million a year. It's a global insurance organization, and it operates across the United States and around the globe. This type of success can only be achieved right here in the United States of America. And I'm running because I want to give back to the greatest state country on earth and the greatest state and the greatest country on earth. A little bit also about my political experience. As some of you may know, I had the privilege as serving as the Arizona Republican Party treasurer from 2023 to 2025. I was elected by over 85% of the state committee to this role. And I ran on transparency, accountability, and fixing our state party. I came into a party that was bankrupt, and I helped stabilize the party. I built relationships with the big organizations, the Trump campaign, and I built relationships with donors across the state. And for the first time, the party performed, or not first time, but for the first time in a long time, the party performed very, very well. We saw massive victories. I delivered President with the rest of our party and other organizations. We helped deliver President Trump the biggest victory out of all of the swing states. We picked up, I'm very proud of President Trump. When pundits said we were going to lose our legislature, we didn't just lose our legislature, we picked up 1 seat in the state Senate and 2 seats in the state House. And that's why many members of our legislature, including leadership like President Peterson, have endorsed my campaign. And in addition, I audited the state party for the first time in a decade and found a lot of waste that had been occurred by the prior administration. And again, I want to digress. People trusted me with $20 million of donor money, including President Trump and the RNC's campaign. $10 million came into the party that was spent directly on their reelection. So what does a treasurer do? That's a question I get all the time as I'm on the road. And I've traveled the state for the last nearly year that I've been running. And the number one thing that the treasurer does, which is a question I suppose I'm going to be answering here in a minute, is they serve as the state's chief financial banking officer. And it is absolutely imperative that we elect someone in this role that has the experience to manage $32 billion. It's billion with a B. It's a lot of money. And I would be the first treasurer in nearly 50 years to have direct investment experience. I manage over $100 million today in claims reserves for my insurance organization. And I'm required to invest those reserves in NAIC-based investment guidelines, which are more conservative than the state treasurer. And I don't want to criticize the current treasurer, but I've taken our returns to multiple investment professionals, and I think we can do better without putting the principal at risk. It requires someone that knows what they're doing to get into the weeds, audit our portfolio and our strategy, and make our state better. Additionally, I've noticed that there's a lot of people, as I've traveled the state, that are not utilizing what's called the local government investment pools. Cities and counties throughout Arizona have the ability to invest with the treasurer. They don't have to. And as I traveled the state, I've seen cities, counties, and other local municipalities that have their money in checking accounts. We can do better. If those people put those money with the state treasurer and get a return, they can reinvest those into their communities, or I think maybe cut taxes too. That's also another option that I like. Additionally, I must say I disagree with one thing that's very important. Our government has a massive amount of waste, fraud, and abuse, especially in our public education system. And I think we need a once-in-a-generation DOGE-style audit to uncover that waste, fraud, and abuse and expose it to you, the taxpayers and citizens of Arizona. And I'm not saying that we should take the Auditor General's authority away. I'm just saying it's something that we should do once in a generation because we need to uncover the waste, the fraud, and the abuse. So in closing, I think the state treasurer is often an overlooked office, but $32 billion is a lot of money. And you have to ask yourself, who do you want to be in charge of that money? I think if we compare it to a plane, do you want someone that's never stepped into the cockpit of a plane or taken a couple of flying lessons, flying a $32 billion plane halfway across the world? Or do you want someone that is a seasoned investment professional that helps stabilize the party, that has a proven track record of managing money and doing the right thing financially for the people that they are willing to serve? So thank you so much for having me. I look forward to the rest of this evening.
The treasurer is the chief custodian of our state resources, investing state dollars in a wise and effective manner to gain the returns to be able to, and the cash flow to make good on promises, whether that's paying out to local governments, schools, border security, infrastructure, and the like. But the goal is to manage, invest, and steward the resources in a safe, as well as in a safe and, I just had a moment, in a safe manner that ensures liquidity and also maximizes yield.
Okay, thank you. And Elijah, what, in your mind, does the treasurer of Arizona do?
So the treasurer is our state's chief banking and investment officer. And the job of the treasurer is to manage the state's $32 billion in assets, all the different investment pools that come with those assets, and also determine where the state banks. And I think, obviously it's a very important job. And one of the really important things is you have a treasurer that knows what they're doing when it comes to investing a large amount of money and can do it safely, but at the same time maximizing returns. And that's something that has been an integral part of my campaign, is ensuring that we are safely able to invest the money. But the key thing is you gotta have somebody that knows what they're doing. You gotta have somebody that can look at the portfolio and determine what's safe and what's not. And one thing that kind of concerns me about my opponent, I'm not trying to attack her personally, but just this was a job interview, is she said that the job of the treasurer is, in a radio interview, is to manage an office of people that are stewarded with the state's resources. The treasurer is the steward of the state's resources. They are directly elected by you, the people. And that's why the framers of our state constitution have the treasurer as an elected office. And in order to lead people, I think the treasurer's job is to lead people and lead as the state's banking and investment officer. And in order to do that, you have to know what it's like to manage money on a large scale. And so that to me is the primary function and focus of the state treasurer. Thank you.
Thank you. And our second question, and timers, remember there are 1 minute answers. There are five guiding principles for the state treasurer of Arizona. Of the 5 guiding principles, would you please designate 3 that you think are the most important and tell us why? And you have 1 minute for your answer. And how about let's start with Katherine.
So when I think about the 5 guiding principles, I also put it in the context of being safe, make sure liquidity, and also ensure yield. But as I think about that, the guiding principles of the treasurer are to make wise investments on behalf of the state. You want to make sure that they are liquid so we can make good on our state promises, and that we get the strong yield in return so that we have the resources necessary to not only invest in education, but in other areas as well. One of the things that I appreciated about my opponent mentioning is that Treasurer, he has done a fantastic job of promoting financial literacy. That is another key component of the role of the treasurer, and also educating our local governments and taxing authorities to make strategic investments and invest alongside the treasurer's office.
Thank you. And Elijah, if you would like to give us your 3 principles and if you tell us why you think they're the most important.
Absolutely. So for me, number 1 is safety. Ensuring that the assets that we're invested in are safe, stable, and they're not going to put the principal at risk. That is a key thing. We don't want to have the investment pool and portfolio that we built up. We don't want to put those assets at risk and lose principal. So that's the number 1 thing. Transparency to me is also very key. Making sure that we're publishing reports, publishing data that the people of Arizona can look at and use to analyze the investment portfolio. And I also think, I will agree that education is another third key factor and a key guiding principle, and here's why. I think a lot of people don't know what the treasurer does. And I think it's important that we get the elected treasurer goes out, and not just to the people, but to the cities and the counties and the local governments. I've been all over the state. I've met with mayors who said, I've never talked to the treasurer. I don't know there was one mayor of a town outside of Maricopa County, I think it was in Payson or around there, who said that there was millions of dollars they didn't know where it was. And so the treasurer's job is to provide that transparency to the people of Arizona and the taxpayers. Thank you.
All right.
Decisions are made by independent boards that go over all the finances. And the treasurer supervises that. How much of the control of the investment decisions rests in these boards versus the control of the treasurer themselves? How much control does the treasurer have on these board decisions?
No problem. So the state treasurer actually has a lot of statutory latitude in certain decisions, and that's why, again, it's so important that we elect a treasurer that knows what they're doing with investments. But the one board that does have is the State Land Trust Board. The State Land Trust Board, when land is sold, goes to the State Land Trust Board, and the State Land Trust Board, the treasurer sits on that board, and they make those determinations.
Do you want Katherine to answer too?
Yes.
Great. So in addition to the investment board with the treasurer chairs and has 2 appointees in addition to others that sit, that the treasurer serves as the guiding star and the North Star for where the state needs to go with its investment decisions. That board certainly helps inform and guides. And then similar with the land trust, ultimately it's up to the treasurer to sort of provide that overall guidance and that North Star with the input of strategic and guidance and of those who are also experts. So,
Can I make one more?
1 minute.
Sorry. The board, I believe, that my opponent was talking about is called the Board of Investment. And so the state treasurer sits on that board, and there's actually a monthly report that gets published on the state treasurer's website that you can go download. But again, the board is an advisory board. The treasurer still has a lot of latitude over the investment decisions that can be made to the state. And again, it's, I think, why it's so important that we elect somebody that knows how to manage that level of asset mix. Thank you so much.
Okay, and the first question Elijah answered first. So with the next question, let's let Katherine start unless you ask otherwise.
Okay, I'm an educator, and so my heart goes with education. And as I understand, you will be in charge of the educational funds, and I'm hoping that you will be able to work with Kimberly Lee to make sure that things are done right. But one of my big question is, what happens when everything gets thrown in the air and the government closes down the Department of Education? That's going to be a big problem. And have you thought about it in advance? What do you see going forth if this happens?
well, thank you for your question. I really appreciate it. Yes, the role of the Treasurer's Office is to manage those assets, particularly state land trust helps provide supplemental resources to the state basic aid. As far as the role of the Treasurer working with the the Department of Education, it certainly is the one that deploys those resources that go directly to our public schools. It also has the investment manages the ESA contract. That's about 102,000 students are benefiting from our state ESA program at about $1 billion. The day-to-day operations are with the Arizona Department of Education, but that contract of where the resources sits with the Department of Treasury. As far as the role of the Arizona Department of Education, as the federal government divests education back to the states, it will require the Department of Education to step up and really ensure that the accountability and interventions and the expertise of our students are met. So it will be more increased responsibility for our Arizona Department of Education.
So, echoing what my opponent said, number one area where the treasurer two areas that the treasurer has a huge amount of responsibilities that pertains to education is the 529 plan and the state land trust. And so I'll start with the 529 plan. The 529 plan, obviously, we've seen an expansion of its utilization over the years for children who want to save for their college. And that's something that I would continue promoting very vociferously as the state treasurer. They determine what funds, or there are a list of funds that the parents can invest. I think there are two, and the parents can then make the determination of where they want to place their funds. I think one's a higher risk fund and the other's a more moderate risk. They also, like my opponent said, determine where the wallet, it's called the class wallet, is held, what vendor we use for the class wallet. So that's another thing. And then the other thing that the state treasurer, kind of has oversight of is in education. Something that's very, very important is Prop 123. That's something that's coming up where it regulates the distribution that has to go into the state land trust. And so we need to have a treasurer that can understand this portfolio, so we can, when this comes up, hopefully in 2027, we know how to properly make sure that doesn't go insolvent in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Over here.
Thank you for coming today. My question is, within the Treasurer's Department, outside of that, every single state treasurer, there's associations. There's national associations, Arizona associations, local associations. Every government level has associations that influence the department. What role does the associations currently play at the Treasury's Department? What should it play? And as if you were to be elected as treasurer, what would your role with the associations be versus the role that the people should play in the office?
And we'll start with Elijah with this one.
So yeah, there are two major national treasurers associations that I'm aware of. I know our current treasurer is a member, and I think she sits on one of the boards of the National Treasury. I forgot the exact acronym, National Treasurers Association. But look, I'm running to be the treasurer of Arizona. I'm not running to be the treasurer of the United States. I'm not running to federalize our treasurer's office. I believe local control is important. That's part of the reason I'm a Republican, because I believe power is best concentrated in the hands of you, the people. And so I don't currently know what amount of influence that National Treasurers Organization has over everything. And so when I get in there, I'm going to find out, but I'm going to tell you, if I'm elected your treasurer, it will not have influence. The influence will be with you, because I'm ready to be your treasurer, not some government entity or bureaucrat's treasurer. So thank you so much.
To answer that question, yes, there are around two different organizations. There's a national one that tends to be more bipartisan. There's also a free market one, SFOF, I believe, State Financial Officers Foundation, and it serves as a resource to conservative and free market-oriented treasurers to help provide ideas, investment opportunities, and also learning opportunities. I found it to be a great resource, and that is also an organization that Treasury has been a part of. But again, I would agree with my opponent that the role of the treasurer is to serve Arizonans. It's the custodian of Arizona taxpayer dollars. It's to be that strategic banker and investor on behalf of Arizonans. So drawing from the expertise of our state and helping to steward and manage those resources on behalf of the state, and also local investment pools for our counties, municipalities, and other taxing authorities, that is the role. So I appreciate the question.
Okay, over here.
If party leadership pressured you to approve spending that was technically legal but ethically questionable, would you approve it, and why or why not?
And we'll start with Katherine.
Are you saying that the our state legislature has authorized illegal funding to the treasurer to manage and then deploy? Is that your question?
Yeah, like they proposed a bill or spending of some sort, and party leadership is asking you to approve this bill. But let's say, for instance, for easier understanding of it, it was against the will of the people. Like the people of Arizona didn't want this, but overall Republican Party leadership was pressuring you to approve this bill. Would you side with party leadership, or would you side with the people?
I think the role of the treasurer is to invest in state taxpayer dollars and make sure that those resources are deployed according to not only statute, but according to whether it's passing through federal dollars down to state municipalities or local municipalities. The role, if the statute says, but it's illegal, I think it would put us in a difficult situation. So I appreciated the question, but as you're not a legislator. As the treasurer, your job is to invest the state resources. So, as far as pressuring the treasurer into doing something that is illegal, I would not do that.
From a structural standpoint, the treasurer is not a legislator. They don't have the ability to, pass bills. However, the treasurer is looked at by members of our Republican legislature. If we have a strong treasurer, they are looked at by the legislature as a North Star for financial decisions. In fact, I have many members of the legislature calling me today asking me questions about insurance and financial bills. So if there is a bad bill that is in the legislature, as your treasurer, or there's some waste or something, I'm going to use my bully pulpit as the state's chief banking and investment officer to let everyone know why it's a bad bill, and I will do everything I can as your treasurer to tell legislators why it's a bad idea to vote for that bill. And I will, again, I am running to be your treasurer, and I don't think the treasurer should just be passive and sitting back and not doing anything. They should be out there on the forefront of making sure we have good financial policy in Arizona. Thank you.
Good question.
Okay, we're entering into our last 5 minutes here, so Fred.
Yeah, a lot of responsibility for state treasurer. Amazing. Quick question, do you know specifically what investing threats or weak areas that are currently in place and what will you do?
Okay, losing track. So, threats to I think that from a threat standpoint, the asset mix is a pretty conservative asset mix. It's 60% in equities and 40% in bonds. And if you look at the actual equities, about 35% of it is in large market cap businesses. There's about 10% in small and 15% in medium. And one of the things that I am a little concerned about is there's quite a bit of, for a state government, which is a public entity, to have that much in small and medium cap businesses. So when I get in office, if you give me the privilege of serving as your treasurer, I want to look at our asset mixes. And that's why I said I want to do an audit internally of all the asset mixes to make sure we're invested in the right, safest, most stable, high-rated assets we possibly can that don't put the principal at risk.
Thank you for the question. I think I appreciated what my opponent had to say. The role of the treasurer is obviously to ensure that we don't put our dollars at risk. And so as treasurer, I would take a look at the mix of our investments and make sure that we are not exposed or we have vulnerabilities that would put our resources at risk.
I do want to make a little rebuttal to that if possible.
Okay.
And I really respect your answer. But one thing I just want to challenge you on is, if you don't understand investments at a large level, how are you going to be able to do that? It would be just like saying, I don't know French, I can't go look at a French textbook and tell you anything about it, or I don't know how to design a rocket ship, I couldn't tell you how a rocket ship gets into space at a detailed level. So my question is, how would you be able to do that if you don't have that experience? I do have that experience. I do it every single day that I go into my office.
Do you want to make an answer, Katherine? No? Okay. All right, let's go to the next question.
Okay, looking at the treasurer's website today, it says that the treasurer exclusive
permanent land endowment, could you explain exactly what that is and what that entails?
And we'll start with Katherine this time.
As you probably know, that before, or as Arizona was becoming a state, the federal government sort of deeded land in a state trust for the state to use and to sell for certain purposes, including education. Most of the proceeds do fund different types of education. So we currently have more than $10.1 billion in the state land trust that are assets under management, and the earnings that come off of that go and invest primarily K through 12 education, students for the blind, our school for the blind, our public universities, and other institutions. So the role of the trust is to help supplement and provide additional resources for various programs, institutions, etc. across our state. So it's additional resources that are made available. But those resources come about as a result of the sale of the state lands that we have across the state.
So, echoing with what my opponent said, one of the state land trusts, there's this thing called Prop 123, I'm sure everyone's heard of it. There's a state land trust. When land is sold by the Department of Administration, the funds are deposited into the state land trust, and then the dividends that are coming out of that land trust go into fund our public education system. And we passed this thing called Prop 123 about 10 years ago. And I'm not necessarily saying I'm opposed to Prop 123, but what I am saying is, this is where expertise is important. In the next 20 to 30 years, if we don't do something about it, we're going to run out of money. We're going to run out of principle. And so one of the things that I want to do if I'm elected as your treasurer is I want to work with our legislature and come up with a plan, an actual methodical plan where we go over the numbers and the charts and the commissions of the best and brightest minds in our state to say how much land do we need to sell? Where are we under target? Because we can't let that money dry up. And at the current rate that we're distributing, it's going to. So we need to do something, and if I'm the treasurer, I have the expertise to put that to work for you to make sure that doesn't happen.
All right, next question.
My question is the time frame to turn in your petitions to be on the ballot is coming up March 23rd. Where are you in the process?
Good question.
Start with Katherine.
We have, I'm so impressed by the men and women that are working with our campaign, and we are going to hit and exceed the mark.
And you haven't turned yours in yet?
No, I'll be turning them in March 23rd. Thank you. And you can join us right over here and sign the petition. You can also go online and you can scan our QR code and you can join us on eQual.
Thank you for your question. So I have been running for nearly a year. I've been working very hard. People know me because they've seen me at the grassroots. They've seen what I've done for the party. I have over 12,000 or 13,000 signatures that I've counted. I most likely will have 15,000 signatures when I turn them in on the 20th of March. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, your question.
Hello, thank you for joining us today. Just a quick question. April 15th is fast approaching. We're all thinking about our taxes. We're thinking about property taxes and the abolishment of such things as property taxes and state taxes, like what's happening in the great state of Florida, for example. Do you have any desires to work with our legislatures, especially those like our future Representative Barbie coming up in the next election, to work with the legislature in abolishing or reforming our property tax and or state income tax programs?
And I think we start with Katherine this time, correct?
Sounds good. I can talk about it from a personal perspective, but as far as the role of the treasurer's office is obviously taking in receipts, investing those resources. I'm very in favor of limiting and lowering taxes for our individuals. As connected to the treasurer's office, we want to make sure those resources are invested wisely so that we can maintain the yield, so we can maintain liquidity and get those resources out. From a personal perspective, if we didn't have to pay property tax, that would be fantastic. But the role of the treasurer is really managing and stewarding, being that chief custodian of those resources. So I think that's a conversation for another day, but working with if the legislature was going to drive that agenda, if we had ideally a Republican governor, ideally we need to actually just a slight caveat, we need to make sure we have Republicans up and down the ballot, from governor all the way down. So I hope you guys are super energized and ready to go, because that we need that kind of leadership for our state.
So first of all, to answer your question bluntly, I am 100% in support of lowering or abolishing our property and sales, our property taxes and our income taxes. I think it's obviously that we're going to have to find a way to make that money up somewhere. But I'm a conservative. I'm a huge fiscal conservative, and actually I have a history of opposing taxes. I was a big voice against Prop 208 in 2020 when they were trying to put that on the ballot. Marissa over there could attest to that. So, but here's the thing. Again, I think there's a difference here, because the difference is I believe in being a fighter. When there's something wrong, if I'm the state's chief banking and investment officer, I think I have a responsibility to stand up and tell the legislature what I think, and I think a lot of them respect my opinion because they know I'm a successful business owner and they know I know finance policy. And so I would absolutely work with the Republican governor, which we will have on January 1 of 2027. We're getting rid of that awful governor, Katie Hobbs. But I will work with them to get into the governor to get into the details on how we can achieve that, because you got to get someone that knows the details, and I know how to do that. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you. How will you embrace AI to benefit the state of Arizona, and what disadvantages do you see with AI in your position?
So that's a great question, and the treasurer doesn't really have, again, I know this is probably an answer that we both said, and you guys are both probably really tired of hearing this answer, but managing $32 billion is a very, very important job. So I don't want to comment on how I'm going to do it in other departments, but what I will comment on is how I'm going to do it within the state treasurer's office. I've done a very deep analysis of the treasurer's office and the staff that works there, and I've looked at the organizational chart. I've actually hired a policy advisor who's educated me, and there's a lot of redundancy there. And there's a lot of AI things that we can implement within the treasurer's office to cut costs. I think the treasurer's office is about $42 billion every single, or million, sorry, not billion, million. That would be a problem with billion. $42 million of actual overhead that we're paying for people in that office, and a lot of them are doing accounting functions. And so one of the things that I would really look at is working to automate some of the processes in the office, track investments, and do some things that, AI is doing things today that armies of people, these take armies of people to do. I've implemented it in my own business, and it's saved us thousands of dollars. And so I have experience implementing AI. I plan on, where I can, implementing in the treasurer's office to maintain efficiency, cut overhead, and return that money back to the taxpayers.
AI, Katherine?
It's a great question, and it's certainly the topic of conversation everywhere today. Yes, I think AI can be an effective tool to either automate, find and eliminate redundancies, and create greater efficiencies and ensure more resources are available for for Arizona taxpayers. As far as what specific tool and how to specifically use it, I don't have a specific answer for you right now. The disadvantages, I think, is when you have AI tools that hallucinate or sort of go in a direction that do not provide accurate information. So as far as the disadvantages, that to me is providing inaccurate information is a great concern to me. So ensuring that the information is accurate and gives us a good accounting of our resources, that to me is really important. So we need to have heavy fact checking if we were going to use such tools.
Well, I want to bifurcate that answer, the second question, and that is, the disadvantages are you can't allow AI to just do everything. You have to have a human being checking it. So when AI can be used is to be, at least today, what AI can be used to do is provide information that it would take a human hundreds and hundreds of hours or thousands of hours to mine through. And in investments and finance, it's very useful. And then a human being gets the data that they can be prepared to make a decision. So the danger is if you get someone that doesn't know what they're doing in the office and they let AI make decisions without a human being checking it. And so I think the other part of your question, and this is kind of a rebuttal to what my opponent just said, is she couldn't really give you any details materially as to how AI affects the treasurer's office, and I think that is concerning, and I think that's why it's important that we elect someone that understands finance and understands business at a large scale to lead that office. Thank you so much.
Okay, last two questions, and I have let us run over because we had so many questions lined up. So these will be our last two questions. Okay. And we'll start with, I think it's Katherine, is it this time to answer?
Thank you both for coming. I'm proud of you stepping up to do a job that's difficult in our day and age. My question evolves around Arizona State Trust land. Gold Canyon is surrounded by Arizona State Trust land. The question is, not is it going to just be profitable or good for money for the schools, but we want everyone in the whole orbit that makes these decisions to consider the community. We almost had a manufacturing vehicle plant, a racetrack, and a railroad all going in between at the foot of the Superstition Mountains, and it's absolutely unacceptable. So we hope that you would consider all these aspects. Thank you.
Did you have
No
a question, or was it more of a comment?
The question is, what would be your role and how would you protect the communities? Would you look at every aspect, including what the community wants?
There is a land trust board that oversees the sale of those assets. As treasurer, who oversees the proceeds of that, I would work with the state land trust to understand and ensure that the sale of those properties not only benefit the community, but also are good for the community. So when I meant selling the assets is good for the community, what I meant is that those proceeds are obviously maximized at the state land trust and with the treasurer's office, but that the decisions of the state board, land trust board, that they are taking into consideration the concerns of the community and ultimately would benefit the community.
But would it be the last step for the treasurer to say we'll pay for it or we won't pay for it if the community doesn't want it?
The role of that is with the state land trust, not the endowment. Those are the resources that maintained by are the proceeds. So the state land trust is a separate entity that sells those properties. So working with that individual to ensure that all parties are able to benefit would certainly be a goal.
So I think this is kind of a rebuttal, but also to that, but also, I mean, I think that we need to, again, this goes back to understanding of finance. The State Land Trust Board is the investment board that manages so once the land is sold, how it is invested. The State Land Trust, with how land is sold, is actually done by the administration department. It basically falls under the governor's purview. And one of the things that I talked about to one of the gubernatorial candidates about is we have a problem where there's a lot of land that we could monetize that's been sitting vacant for 40 or 50 years. And so I think if we get a treasurer in the office who knows and understands finance, we can accelerate the sale of that land so we don't run our state land trust, the trust, dry. But I will tell you this, that's going to be one of my top priorities is fixing Prop 123, and that will require me working with the legislature. But when I work with the legislature, I will absolutely make sure there's provisions, if they're looking to me to help, which I think they will, that give a public comment, and public input period, so people aren't doing things like that without the community having some input and saying to it.
Okay, thank you. And our last question.
So, Katherine, you and I had a great conversation a couple of weekends ago, and my question to you is that in that conversation you had said something about that when you were first asked to run in January, that your first question was, well, I don't really know what the treasurer's office does, what is the role, and started digging in. My question for both of you is, what have you done to prepare to take on the role to be state treasurer, and why do you think you're qualified for the position?
And I believe we start with Elijah.
Well, I've been preparing to be, I've been in finance for the last 14 years of my life, and I've managed millions and millions of dollars. And today, I currently manage over $100 million of investments that are invested in NEIC guidelines, which are actually more conservative and more restrictive than the state treasurer. And my company's actually getting a better return than the state treasurer's office with more restrictive guidelines, which is quite interesting. But I think that my finance background more than qualifies me for this position, but not just that. Again, I served as the party treasurer. I was entrusted with millions of dollars from Republican organizations. The state legislature trusts me. That's why I've been endorsed by so many legislators, because I helped a lot of them through the coordinated mail campaign, and they trusted me with that money to manage it, get elected. And so I have a proven track record of stable stability and coming into an organization and taking a challenging problem and making it successful. I did that with my business. I did that with the the state party. And if you guys give me the permission or the honor and the privilege, I will be doing that with our state treasurer. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your question, Marissa. As far as preparing for this role, I've been taking time to have conversations with our current and former treasurers to understand the legacy and the impact that they've had on behalf of our state. As far as my specific background, I have not had a finance background, but I have had an oversight and stewardship role working with organizations around the country, working in as a staffer in federal government, serving in my capacity of the State Board of Education. So providing that stewardship and that oversight is what I believe is preparing me for this particular role. I would be humbly supportive or grateful for your support, and would be grateful if you would sign our petition and join us in this endeavor.
And it is time.
Am I able to make 1 minute about it? Yes. Look, I think obviously my opponent has done some work at the Board of Education, and I think that's important to note. But managing education and managing finance, and not just finance but investments, are two very different things. And again, you're asking to put, someone's being asked to run a $32 billion called plane that has no flight experience. I think that's a major problem, regardless of who has recommended them. And I will, the people that have endorsed you are people that are not in office anymore or are going to be out the door very soon. I've been endorsed by people that are currently serving in our government leadership of our state legislature that are going to have to work with me if I'm elected treasurer, if you give me that privilege and honor. Thank you.
Okay, and it's time for each candidate to give your 1 minute close. So timers, if you will. And how about let's start with Katherine.
Thank you all for the privilege of letting me come today. It was a real great to be here, Vicki, and thank you so much. I'm running again on the 4 principles of wise stewardship, limited and efficient government, lower taxes, and personal freedom. If I'm able to do the first 2, our taxes stay low, and you will be able to have the resources in your pocket to be able to do what you so choose. As your treasurer, I will manage an incredible team. I will be an effective steward of our resources, and I'll be an advocate for transparency, our local government investment pools, financial literacy, and ensure that our next generation has the resources necessary to thrive. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much for having me here today. I think, this is one of the most important offices, but overlooked offices in Arizona. And I have a demonstrated track record of managing large amounts of money at a large scale, not just business, but also in politics. President Trump and other Republican leaders in our state have trusted me with millions of their dollars, and that's why I'm running, so I can take those skills that I have and put them to work for you. We need somebody in the office who can do the job on day one, that doesn't have on-the-job training, that knows what they're doing the second they step in through that door. And not only just wants to continue what's been going on for the last 20 years, but actually knows what they're doing so they can go in and get into the details, do an audit, and make things better without putting the principal at risk. And that's something that I want to do if I'm your treasurer. I think we need, the reason we're Republicans and the reason that President Trump won is because the Republican Party base, people in this room know that we need a business leader, someone proven with finance and money in our country. And I ask that you consider me for that, leading our state finance and treasury. Thank you so much, and have a good evening.